Okay, so for those of you who are joining us, this is the topic. This is what we are dealing with today. Well, those of you just joining us, we are dealing with logic and language usage. This is what we are dealing with, basically. And then the content areas that we or area will be uh, covering is what I have just enumerated. So basically, these are the things that we are covering. So we are starting with an introductory issues. So starting with an introductory issue, we want to know why the need of studying something with regard to language. Basically, if you look at all the things that I have emphasized from the beginning, the very beginning, it is about language. So if you are talking about logic, you are talking about reasoning using language. And so if you are using language, then what are the things that you need to understand about language? Once you understand those issues, it becomes so important to you. So this aspect then is covered under analytical thinking to help you ground yourself firmly and effectively when it comes to the use of language. So we say language is composed of words, and these words can be used to assist in our understanding or to hide the meaning of issues. Language is part of us, and we are accustomed to using it unreflectively. So, to make good use of language, what is important is we need to be able to have the ability to be able to analyze the use of language. The reason is that language plays a central role in shaping our thought. So the thought you have this morning has been shaped as a result of the language you possess. So language also shapes our attention and help construct our picture of the world. And that is why it is important to analyze whatever we are dealing with. So the call for an analysis of language and its use is needful. The reason being that language has effect on our thinking. So for example, this morning I just opened my mouth or just utter a word, and the expression that comes out is teenage pregnancy. Now, the use of that expression, teenage pregnancy, doesn't need so much evidence, but almost all of you would understand what teenage pregnancy is. What exactly is teenage pregnancy? So that is why we are saying that language shape, it affects our thinking. So there are some expressions, common expressions that when they are used, you quickly understand them without any evidence being offered to you. So let's say we are talking about voting. Quickly, we understand voting without further evidence being provided. Or I just mentioned lectures. You understand when you talk about lecture within your confined context, you understand what it is without having to give you so many evidence or other reasons. Again, language can communicate questionable assumptions. It can communicate questionable assumptions. That is where we need to analyze it. For example, the use of the word man can have different kinds of meaning. It can be gender, it can carry gender specific meaning or gender inclusive meaning. And if it is so, then some kind of contextual tension has been raised. For example, that this popular archbishop who lived in the 18th century, that was around the 1740s thereabout, and he was in a church giving a counsel. He was um, officiating a wedding ceremony. And in the wedding ceremony, he was counseling the couple. And then he ended up saying that man was born to have many lovers. Man was born to have many lovers. Now, um, the use of the term man has different meanings. It can be a gender specific and it can be gender neutral. So, as such, there's a problem. So, is he advocating that the male entity has the right to have many lovers, marry, and still have other lovers or other girlfriends around? Or he's talking about man and woman, he's talking about both sexes. If he is referring to both sexes, then again, the problem that arises is, then is there a need even for marriage at all? If one can marry and still have other concubines or other people at the side and be moving around with. So that is why we say that we need to be able to analyze language effectively because of some of these issues. When you are communicating questionable assumption and we don't pay attention, we don't analyze, we will swallow everything down just as we receive it. Other factors also include that language plays a powerful role in directing our attention, communicating assumptions, and framing issues. And sometimes language may obscure our recognition of the difference between the use of a word and the mention of a word. So, language can obscure that. Sometimes, when a word, you come across a word used or a word utilized in a sentence, it may be that that word has no significance. If the word has no significance, then probably the word is just merely being mentioned. If the word has a significance, then the word is actually being used. So let's look at some example or four examples, two specific examples. The first example has to deal with the use of, or has to do with the term sunset. So look at the sentence. The word sunset has 6 letters. The word sunset has 6 letters. In this very sentence, sunset has no significance. Why does it not have any significance? It is merely being mentioned. The speaker is merely mentioning it. So there's nothing to expect from it. He's just mentioning it. But let's look at the second example. The sunset was beautiful. Here, the word sunset has actually been used. So it has a lot of significance. And the listener will have to pay detailed attention to it. We'll look at other examples that include brief, that utilizes the word brief. So the first example say, Vinci wrote brief. It means that what Vinci wrote is the word brief, the term brief. So it has no significance to pay so much attention to. But in the second one, it said Vinci wrote brief to show that the content of what Vinci wrote was brief. At this time, it is not that Vinci was writing the word brief, but actually, whatever Vinci wrote, the content of it was not that much, was brief. So when we come to the logical usage of language, we are thinking about how a word is used. And if you looked at some of the things that I taught across in Introduction to Logic, you see basically the confusion has to do with how terms are used. So logic or logical reasoning is concerned with the use of terms and the terms being used correctly. So anytime a language is used or anytime we engage ourselves using language, some kind of meanings stem out as a result. What are some of the meanings that we derive? We have basically two types of meaning. These has to do with cognitive meaning. The cognitive meaning is when we are trying to convey information. We're trying to convey information. In the university environment, what happens is the exchange of information. And then again, when language is expressed, we can also have emotive meanings coming out. And so we are saying that feelings have been evoked or feelings have been expressed. So oftentimes you will hear some discussions, and then you will have what you will have simply from them is that they revolve mainly around feelings. So we want to look at each of these into some detail. So let's start or consider emotive meaning and then value claims. Emotive language more or less sets our moods. They set our moods and attitude. Okay. So when somebody tries to use an emotive language, for example, you have a young man or a man approaching a lady and probably expressing interest in this lady. Oftentimes, men will not go straight forward to the point and tell the lady, I am interested in you, or probably I have this desire towards you. Oftentimes, they don't do that. So, what do? They end up talking plenty, using all forms of flowery language. And oftentimes, all the things they are saying, they don't even understand them. Either they don't understand them or they don't even believe in them. But because they want to alter the attitude of this lady or of this young lady, they use such words. So they are emotive laden. So the intention is to control the attitude, to alter the mood of the individual receiving this language. So oftentimes you will see the ladies go like just smiling over, laughing over, happy, and then just swallowing everything. So if you are not smart enough, this gentleman keeps telling you this over and over and over for some time, and all you begin to respond towards it because you have not analyzed it. You just love it, and it sounds beautiful. Your ears are packaged with very emotive language. So your attitude towards it is that, oh, this gentleman loves me. He makes me laugh. He gives me time. Why don't I just revolve around? I need somebody who have time for me, who talk nice, who this. If you ask the ladies what they are interested in or what will make them feel like they are in love, these are some of the things they will tell you. Oh, he makes me laugh. He's accommodating. When he talks, I'll laugh. Sir. He makes me excited. When I'm around him, my day is complete. So it is because of the use of this emotive language. So this is the aim, the primary aim. All right. So let's look at other example, having used what I have just referred to in relationship context. Now let's come to another context, like critical context, where we are talking about change. So if we are talking about change, and somebody desire to talk about maybe change in the financial sector, and then refers to it as diversion of funds, the word diversion, the expression diversion of funds has a negative implication. It has a negative meaning. And so it suggests a negative attitude. And so those who hear these expression will probably begin to act on the impulse and respond to it. And let's say we also talk about change in the form of reform. So we are bringing reform to the financial sector. Now, if you hear the word reform in the financial sector, it tends to be very positive. And this was what the government in power actually did in their first year in power when they came in the first 4 years, the first 2 years. That was what they did. They were talking about reforms, bringing reforms to the financial sector. We are going to clean the financial sector of mess, of fraud, of this, of that. And people were happy. They did not know. When they were saying this, they were happy. You see how the government chooses their words. Very, very perfect. It is fully emotive, fully emotional. So people galvanize their support for it. Oh, this government is going to work for us. This government is going to change Ghana. This government is going to move Ghana into a first-class middle-income country. And so let's galvanize support for them. They are going to bring cleansing in the financial sector. You see, that's another way, cleansing, reform, etc. They are positive until banks began to collapse. Then people begin to say, hey, so is that the cleansing we're promised? Is it about taking away our jobs? Is it about now having a lot of people going to sit at home and etc., etc.? The politicians are very wise. They are very crafty at this. And they will never use plain language for you to seek for explanation or to seek for evidence. They will use a language that will be unquestionable. These are pleasant. They alter mood. They paralyze your intention to even, in the first place, to even have a question and to ask. All right. So Govia, according to Govia, he is saying that if we are talking about reform, or if we utilize reform, it is easier to persuade people with that than to talk about diverting of funds. If you talk about diverting of funds, people will definitely not, they will definitely not support that. And cunningly, that was also one of the things that was used on the political platform. That, hey, the previous government has diverted our funds from here, from the consolidated fund, from this fund for their own selfish gains. So when we come, we are going to cleanse the system. So have you seen? They use all of these terms to alter people's attitude. One of it is to raise negative feeling towards the previous government, and one of it is to also elicit positive attitude to support the new incoming government. So politicians are crafty when it comes to the use of these. Not just politicians or individuals, every other person is capable of doing that. And being in a university environment, you have to look out for these issues. Very, very, very important. So scholars also say that we cannot really have what we call a universal, neutral language. So there's nothing like being neutral. You are either in the negative, or you are in the positive. So there is nothing like neutral emotive language or neutral emotional language. It is either positive or it is negative. All right. So these are the issues that we need to pay attention to. So let's look at these famous example. And this example is in your textbook. I actually took it from the textbook that I gave you, A Concise Introduction to Logic. That is by Harley. So this is it. I said the death penalty is a cruel and inhuman form of punishment in which helpless prisoners are dragged from their cells and summarily slaughtered only to satiate the bloodlust of a vengeful public. This is a classic example of an emotional laden terminologies. The example is full of emotion. What is the speaker or writer trying to tell us, talk about? He's telling us about the death penalty. And what is he saying about it? He's communicating something very simple about the death penalty. But because the writer wants to alter the attitude, the mood of his readers, of his listeners, of his audience to support him, he uses negative terminologies to do that. So look at words like cruel, the words like terms like cruel. Cruel is a very strong negative term. Inhuman, very negative. Helpless, negative. And all of them are painting a certain kind of negative pictures. Dragged, you have the sense of somebody dragging somebody on the floor. You understand? Negative pictures. Slaughtered. If you have not seen a human being slaughtered, at least you can see in the form of. So, excuse my language, because sometimes these language are very strong. For instance, slaughtering of an animal. And this is talking about human. Bloodlust. And bloodlust have to do, bloodlust can even bring images or personalities like India and me, who were fond of that and even eating, feasting on human beings or human bodies or human flesh. Then vengeful. All of these suggest very negative terms, and they are emotional. So they will cause a certain attitudinal change in the listener, in the audience, just to change the audience mood and support something without asking for proofs, right? So the examples that I have outlined, they are emotionally or emotively charged words, emotively charged language. So the entire phrase, the entire sentence there is an emotively charged one. But even though this is an emotionally charged language, there is a meaning you can conceive from it. It is basically communicating something. And what it is communicating is what we refer to as the cognitive meaning. It means that in spite of that, there is an information we can derive from it. So if you are a logician, you have studied logic. That's what we are talking about, analytical thinking. You are a logician. You hear such a thing. You should not just be carried away because of the strong words or terms, emotively charged terms that have been used. You should not be carried away by those ones. You have to listen closely and look at what information is the person giving out by using such emotively charged language. So, for example, if our ladies will become extra attentive to whatever men in general we tell them, the flowery language we use for them, the beautiful words we use for them, the emotively charged, you are the sugar in my cocoa, you are the mosquito in my net, and then all you are the Milo Island, you are the flower, you are the rose, you are that. If they will pay attention and be extra attentive, they will basically know the information we are conveying. I said, this is the information. They wouldn't even want to give into most of this emotively charged language to just offset their moods and keep them in another atmosphere. They will begin to question your rationale for saying this. So if they are able to do that, then it means that they are getting the cognitive meaning. That is the information that is being communicated. So now take note. Any emotively charged language that is used has a certain information that is being passed on to you. So this shows that an emotive statement can have both emotive meaning and cognitive meaning, right? So an emotive language or statement can have two meanings in it, emotive meaning and cognitive meaning. So the cognitive meaning that we derive from an emotive statement or an emotive language or an emotive claim or an emotive passage is what we refer to as value claim. So value claim is the cognitive part or is the cognitive meaning that is derived from the emotive statement. So this whole statement here has a cognitive meaning. It has a cognitive meaning. That cognitive meaning, we refer to it as what? Value claim. But you cannot get it on a silver platter if you don't pay attention to it closely. So what then is a value claim? What then is a value claim? A value claim is a claim that something is good, something is bad, something is right, something is wrong, or something is better, or something is worse, or more or less important than some other things. So to say that this one is more important than this one is more important than that, that is a value claim. So what is this person trying to tell us? This person simply want to tell us that the death penalty is wrong. The death penalty is not good. The death penalty is bad. That is all that this person want to say. But you see, he won't go straight to the point. Because when you go straight to the point, you may be asking for evidence. So just imagine you going to a lady. You have been eyeing this lady for a very long time. You are in the university environment, and you all understand what I'm saying. Sometimes it is the women who are the ladies who are doing that, who have been eyeing this guy for a very long time, and then want to approach, or the gentleman has been eyeing this lady for a very long time, and then you have the opportunity probably to have uh, some interaction, and then you meet and you go straight telling the lady, I'm interested in you. In fact, it will look some way. And sometimes the ladies even don't like that. They think that you are invading their space. They think that you are trying to jump over them, you are harassing them, or etc. So that conception creates problem. It creates problem. So instead of going straight forward, some of you don't. And sometimes the gentlemen themselves wouldn't want to go that way. Because if they go that way and then they tell you, oh, I'm interested in you, I think I want to have some, I have some interest in you. Probably the questions that will be coming from the lady to prove why thousands of ladies, all the ladies do that. Oh, there are plenty ladies on campus. There are level 100s, there are level 200s, there are level 300, there are level 400. All these beautiful ladies are on campus. So why bypass all of these ones? And then you come to me. And sometimes the gentlemen find it difficult to answer such questions, and they will not be able to provide good answers, right? So they will choose to use emotive language, emotive statement, emotive passage to do their talk around, right? So in the long run, the person just want to tell you, oh, you are wonderful, oh, you are good. I think you are the right person I want to. But the questions that will come, the evidence that will be asked are problematic. So, as I have told you, we now know the value claim in the particular statement that has been made. The same way, you now know the value claim in what I have just mentioned about our ladies, our friends, your female friends. You just know, or the ladies yourself, you just know all the story this guy have been telling you, driving to your house, offering you pizza, offering you weekend out. It's just one thing he want to tell you. Just one thing he just want to tell you. So you have to find that value claim. He has spent 6 months, 6 months just talking chaffs into your ears, chaffs, feeding your emotion until you grow big emotionally, and then you begin to burst open. Right. So these are the things that open. So for the purpose of logic, it is important that when an emotive language is used, when an emotive statement is used, you have to do everything possible to disengage the value claim. You have to do everything. You have to do everything to disengage the value claim, right, from the emotive meaning. Then you treat those claims as separate statements. So the claim that has been made is that the death penalty is wrong, or the death penalty is immoral. That is the value claim. Why is it value claim? It's based on value. It's based on ethics. It is based on the ethics that this is good, this is bad, that is that. That is all. So the emotively charged language, that is what they do. It's just saying this is bad, this is good, this is better, this is excellent. It's just to say that, oh, this is the way of life. It's based on value, people's values. So people's value statement, you should be able to know that this political party is bad, this politician is bad, this president. So sometimes they will not go straight forward that way. Or this politician is good. This politician is the best. This, that. Those are the value claims because they are based on values. They are based on individual judgment. So to say that the death penalty is wrong is based on a certain level of judgment. And you will need to provide what? Proofs. That is why we have different kinds of statement. But unfortunately, we don't go into all those areas. Probably when you have access to my book that will be launched very soon, you can learn some of those things from it. And then you understand what is referred to, the various kinds or different kinds of statements that you will need to know. And when they are altered, how to handle them. All right. So as I have said, for the purpose of logic, when an emotively charged language is used, do your best to isolate the value claim from it and treat that value claim as a separate statement. I've also said this over and over and over and over in the course of my explanation. The reason why we have speakers, we have writers using emotively charged terms. The reason why you will have a gentleman trying to use flowery language to woo a lady, it is simple. Oftentimes, value claims demand that you provide evidence or reason. If you go to this lady and you are telling this lady, you are a wonderful girl, I'm interested in you. You see, that's a value claim. It is based on your judgment. What is meant by wonderful? You are the only one who knows. Oh, you are lovely. I'm interested in you. What is meant by lovely? You are the only one who knows. And so you have to provide evidence for what you mean by what? Lovely. I love you. It's so vague. So you have to present what? What do you call it? Evidence for what you will mean by love and loving you and etc. So oftentimes, these speakers, claimants, they don't have evidence to offer. They don't have reasons to give. So they will tend to use what? These emotively charged terms, right? Oftentimes they cannot even support the reasons or give evidence to support the reason. So they will just go talk about bit about the bush. In fact, even the reason you are asking for, they'll end up supplying you with more emotively charged words. So by the end of the day, what have you gained? You have gained nothing. So they wouldn't want to go straight forward to use value claim. If they use value claim, there will be problem. They don't have answers. They don't have support. They don't have evidence to support. Emotively or emotive terminology obscure the fact that a value claim is being made. So sometimes when emotively charged terms are used, you, the reader, you can be buried. In other words, that is also an emotively charged language. You can be buried. In other words, meanings have been hidden from you. The right meaning that you need to get has been hidden from you. So you will only be you'll only be trying to find out, is it possible to this, that, do that, this? It becomes difficult, right? So there's a word I want to use, but it looks like it's not coming, right? So you'll be trying to figure out what exactly does it mean, okay? So when emotively charged words or terms or language is used, it is because sometimes the speaker want to hide certain meaning from you. For example, a person may refer to another person as crazy, stupid, or weird to mean the person is doing something bad or something wrong when they are unable or unwilling to give evidence for this claim. Most of you have been doing it. What you're doing is crazy, eh? It's crazy to say that you're doing something wrong. Or probably the person is found in a wrong relationship or the relationship is not helping and they'll go describing it as weird or a stupid one. They're just telling you it's the wrong one for you. But because they don't have evidence to offer you, they will go that way. But again, the word even crazy can also be used for something positive. Like young people today can be describing a fantastic idea as crazy. That's crazy, you know. The person doesn't mean to be negative. The person wants to be positive, but he uses the word crazy, even the word weird, to mean something is fantastic, to mean something is good, to mean something is excellent. So if you are a logician, you have to be extra alert when words like these are being terms like these. They are all emotively charged terms. So when they are used, you should be able to disengage what exactly is the person trying to convey. Is the person saying that what I'm doing is negative, or it is what? Positive? Even the term peculiar, oftentimes we use the word peculiar to in context to mean positive. But if you judge it closely, you realize that the term peculiar, that's a peculiar one. It's telling you that that is odd. Peculiar can mean odd, but peculiar can be negative. So we have to pay attention to terms when they are used. So as I've said, when emotively charged terms are used, they sometimes are meant to hide meanings from you. Okay, to hide the value claim from you. So you cannot recognize it. Another example, a person may also refer to something as awesome or gross. And even the term awesome can also be used negatively. That's awesome. It does not mean that the person is conceding to whatever you are doing, but it's describing it negatively. So you have to understand. So awesome, gross, for the same reason, either the thing is good, the thing is excellent. But as I've said, they can also be used to mean something negative. So in this context, oftentimes, if you admire the person who is speaking and the person uses words or terms like awesome, gross, and etc., your respect for the person alone will not push you to ask questions or to seek for clarity or to seek for evidence. So sometimes authority figures or likable people can tend to use these words, and we excuse them. We don't see these things as problematic, but they are problematic, and they can pose a lot of difficulties. They can pose a lot of challenges to you if you are not careful, if you are not vigilant, if you are not attentive. Some of these things can just happen, and then you'll be carried away. So you need to understand these issues closely so that you'll be able to deal with the issues sufficiently. All right. So they may the these guys or these writers or these speakers also use emotive language to work to the advantage of their own side. For example, if you take politicians would normally will paint the opposite side as bad. Whatever policy, before MPP came to power, NDC was the one in power. They painted everything Mahama and his government was doing as bad. Even if it was good, they painted it bad. If it was about contractual issues, road construction, so it is the money, they are diverting our monies into their personal accounts. That is why they said they are constructing road. They did and painted everything that government was doing evil, bad, until they were rejected. Then they came to power. And when they came to power, they started doing the same thing. And this time around, they said, don't talk about what we are doing as bad, because we are doing the best. We are the one building Ghana. Ghana has gone bankrupt. We are saving Ghana. We are doing everything for your good. You see, there's no money in the country. Even we have to find out and make sure that we legislate other tax laws to help Ghana come to a certain limelight. So let's bring in e-levy, let's bring in that, let's bring in that, let's bring in that. So all of these policies that they do, politicians are always like that. So they'll use emotively serious, charged language just to get their advantage, their side advantage. All of these lead to a certain form of biases. So I said, when you use emotively charged language, it will lead to you expressing and then perpetuating bias. And two, When you also use emotively charged language, it can pose serious impediment to clear understanding. It means that people who need to understand you will not gain understanding. They wouldn't even know what you are talking about, right? So it's very important we try to understand some of these issues thoroughly. For example, the use of the word terrorist. You see, the word terrorist has a very negative connotation, and there is no political sympathizer or no political system will actually call their adherents as terrorists. They will never do that. So you have the government in power, have some of their adherents go and ransack people home or even cause trouble and let it result in death, or ambush a group of people and vandalize their property or destroy whatever they do. They will never ever refer to them as what? Terrorists. They will never. So if you are the opposite side, refer to those adherents as terrorists, it will be problematic. The government in power will never see that. Even the political party or political system they belong to will never see it as a terrorist action. That is the reason why even terrorist groups around the globe don't call themselves and don't accept to be called that they are terrorists. Right now, the revolutionary guards of Iran have been classified as terrorist organization by the United States of America. They have classified them. So wherever they see them, they say they must be destroyed, they must be bombed, the activities must be destroyed. So they have classified them that way. But the group themselves don't see themselves that way. And the Iraqi, the Iran government itself also doesn't see that group as a terrorist group, because they see them as a legitimate force that protects the interests of Iran. And so they can never refer to them as terrorist groups. So these are the issues that we are referring to. And so some of these groups will try to rather refer to themselves as liberation fighters, or if they should even die in their masses, they refer to themselves as martyrs. So most of the terrorist groups, that is the orientation they give to their members. If you die, it's like you have died as a martyr. It means you will make heaven. You died fighting for a good cause. That is why you were killed. And so you are a martyr. And many people will want to die as martyrs. You understand? So they will, because evil has been painted so good, and so flourishing that they can identify with, and they have nothing to spare their life for except to do evil. They would like to go and do evil and die in the cause of evil and be named as martyrs. So these are favorable terms. These are favorable, emotively charged terms. So they are positive. But to go negative, to go terrorist is negative. And sometimes politicians, or not just politicians, even academics, and including those of you developing your intellectual facilities within the university environment, instead of using argument, you may tend to use emotively charged language. Instead of using argument, you may tend to use an emotively charged language. Let's look at two examples here. For example, you say we should write a polite letter to the president and express our concern about the procedures used in the case. But this is just naive. Now, the speaker or the writer of this is communicating something to his audience, to his readers. But he chooses to use an emotively charged language to do so by saying what he has said. So, in your view, what do you think the writer is trying to communicate? Let me hear from you quickly. What do you think, in your view, the writer is trying to communicate? Yes, can I hear from you quickly? Anybody can respond. And I am taking note of those who are responding. Yeah, so what do you think the writer or the speaker is trying to convey to his or her audience? You say we should write a polite letter to the president and express our concern about the procedures used in the case. But this is just naive. What do you think is being communicated? Yes, anybody? What value claim do you think is being communicated? Because the writer is supposed to use an argument, but the writer refuses to use an argument and decides to use an emotively charged language. So, what is he communicating? Bernard.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Go ahead. Yes. Sabina, you can go ahead. Sabina, what do you want to share with us? Sabina Amachi, what do you want to share? All right, so then I'll leave this one out for you. Try to do that and submit it as an exercise. So I'll give these two for you as an assignment. So try to do that. And plus the second one. The government is trying to influence a foreign country by threatening to withdraw financial support for its military. What is to be said about this? It's bullying behavior and nothing more. So here again, an emotively charged language has been used instead of an argument. So I want to have this from you submitted as an assignment for marks. Probably I'll use it for your midterm exam for analytical thinking. Okay. Right, all right, all right. Then other forms of emotively charged language that can be used is referred to as euphemism. Euphemism is when you reduce a radically offensive language with and replaces it with a very mild and positive one. Mild and positive language. Then you are using euphemism. For example, referring to somebody dying as kicking the bucket. Now, kicking the bucket is a positive, mild language that has been used to replace death. So, euphemism has also been regarded as an emotively charged language. Now, having established all of this, now we want to look at the cognitive meanings. Now, as I have told you right from the beginning, as a cognitive meaning involves the mental process of acquiring knowledge, learning, and understanding through thought, experience, and the sense. So it's all about trying to receive information, making understanding out of that information. But the information comes through the knowledge you acquired and all of that. Good. So cognitive meaning in themselves can also have problems. And the problem would be when they lack clarity. When they lack clarity, the problem that stem out of them is that they become vague or they express vague opinions, ambiguous opinions, or they can even lead to equivocation. That is why we have fallacies of ambiguity and then fallacy of what? Equivocation. They are clear example of information that have not been properly churned. They are cognitive information, all right, but they lack clarity and the obscure meaning, the obscure understanding. So learning in a university environment, it is developing our intellectual ability, receiving information, processing those information for a particular enterprise, for a particular engagement. Those information can have problem. All right. So these problem that is vagueness, ambiguity, and equivocation that are disclosed in cognitive meaning are what we refer to as linguistic vices. And when we talk about linguistic vice, we are talking about the bad ways in which we sometimes explain our thoughts. The bad ways we sometimes explain our thought. When we convey information to other people, we make certain errors that distort the effectiveness of the communication, such that the people that we have communicated to, they misinterpret or they misunderstand the information we have conveyed to them. So you say something, and the person who receives the information from you lack understanding or misinterprets it. So you mean to say one thing, but how the person understands it differ from what you have said. Then we are talking about what? Uh, uh, Linguistic vice. That's a linguistic vice. So the goal of declarative speech is to be explicit and clear as possible in describing, prescribing, generalizing, and predicting the states of affairs in the world. You have to be clear. That is why we talk about declarative sentences or declarative speech. So we talk about declarative speech. It's still the same thing, making declarative claims. And the declarative claim is that we want to understand the statement just as it is and not what it is not. So if you declare a statement and it is not what it is, then we have landed in a linguistic vice. We have a problem and we need to clarify it. So let's look at these three linguistic vices that I have just referred to: vagueness, ambiguity, and then equivocation, starting with vagueness. And when we talk about vagueness, here we are referring to when the component words of a statement has not been carefully considered, such that more information needs to be conveyed to tell exactly what in the world the word refers to. Then that statement is clearly vague. For example, I think I use the word love, love. I love you. The word love is vague. So saying that you love even a person, it becomes problematic. That is why any meaningful person, if you tell the person, I love you, the person wants to understand, what do you mean by love? Because in some context, love means death, right? Love means death. In some context, love means death. Is it that you want to kill me? That's why you say you love me. In some context, love is vengeance. So somebody want to actually revenge a person, then they come in and say love, but you clearly will find out that it is about vengeance. So love can mean so many things. That is why it makes it work vague. And if you communicate that to a person and the person understands it differently from the way you have said it, then we are saying that that statement, that claim, that language is vague. It needs further clarity. Another example here is my officials are monitoring this situation very closely, and I can promise that we shall take all appropriate measures to ensure that the situation is resolved in a way that is fair to all the parties involved. Now, if you look at the words that I have bolded and italicized, they constitute vagueness, because what will you mean by appropriate measures? Appropriate measures is so vague. It can mean anything. Appropriate measure can mean anything. That is the reason why those who use vague language or vague, emotively charged language always get their way around and move. So they say something, and when you examine it and say, but this is what you mean, they say no. Oh, this is what you are communicating, they say no. That is what makes it vague. So as a logician, you will always have to demand that clarity is always at its core. clarity of whatever is communicated to you is at its core. So, what constitutes appropriate measures? We don't know. We don't know, and it can mean anything. What constitutes fair to all parties? We don't know. What will you mean by fair to all parties? It can mean anything. That is why it is not clear. That is why vagueness is a linguistic vice. So, what is important for us is we need to be clear, we need to go straight to the point, we need to be precise and be specific. If you want to be understood, then these are the tenets, these are the qualifications, these are the things that we need to understand in order to make room and then advance whatever course we seek to advance. Very, very, very important. If you don't do it, you will only be dragging yourself in the soil. All right, that's about vagueness. We want to look at ambiguity. Ambiguity is when you use a term and it means more than one thing. For example, let's look at these sentences. I rode a black horse in red pajamas. I rode a black horse in red pajamas. These statements, if you look at it on the face value, you may think that it is good to go with, but in actual fact, it is not. It is a vague sentence. Now, two things are being suggested. Is it that the black horse was in the red pajamas? Is that what is being communicated? That the black horse was in the red pajamas when it was actually reading? Or the person intend to say that he was in the red pajamas before riding the black horse? So that statement means two different things. So as a logician and also as an intellectual or somebody grooming yourself to become an intellectual, look out for this. And don't just be receiving things and with statements, claims, and then you move along and concur. You swallow it down, the truth, and then you are the champion in town. Another example, John took off his trousers by the bank. If you say John took off his trousers by the bank, was a trouser taken off at the side, at the financial institution, or at the edge of a river? Vague. The passerby helped dog bite victim. Is it that the passerby is actually helping a dog bite someone, or is helping a person who has been bitten by a dog? So these sentences are not clear. So all of you take note so that you don't make ambiguous statements. If you make ambiguous statement, as much as you are trying to convey an information, the information has been laden with a problem. As I have told you, in an intellectual environment, there are two forms of meanings you can derive from any conversation, from any communication. Either it is an emotive meaning or it is a cognitive meaning. If it is a cognitive meaning, it needs to be understood intellectually. It is passing on a certain kind of education, information, knowledge to you. And that knowledge, when it's fraught with problem, then it is no knowledge at all. It is a problem. And we need to deal with that. Then we talk about equivocation. I think we have gone through this extensively when I took you through the fallacies. So equivocation, that is when a word is used more than once in the same context without any signal of the shift in connotation with the intention to manipulate or persuade. When we say there is an error of equivocation. So equivocation has to do with the usage of a particular term, and that term, anytime it is used, you don't suspect it, but you realize that it has shifted in meaning. An example is ethics, right? So I don't see how you can say you are an ethical person. It is so hard to get you to do anything. Your work ethics is so bad. Different things. Work ethics is different from a person being ethical. They are two different things. Now look at the word argue. Sure, philosophy helps you argue better, but do we really need to encourage people to argue? argue, they mean two different things. There is enough hostility in the world. So the person has wrongly built a conclusion on the shift in meaning of the word argue. So that is a problem. So this is called what we call equivocation. And we need to deal with cognitive problems cognitively by supplying clear statements that are straight to the point, and then they are clear. So this is the reason, or for those reasons, we try to define terms in order not to commit vagueness or not to fall into the linguistic vices. We need to define terms sufficiently before we are able to go our way. For instance, if you are using the word love and you know that the word love is vague, or the word light is vague, then what do? You have to define those terms sufficiently before you use them. So anybody who hear you use that particular term, understand the meaning you have constructed for it, the definition you have given it, and that definition is what they will use to assess you. Okay, so in the university environment, all of you listen and take it seriously. We just don't use terms anyhow. When you use a term that is not clear, somebody will find out, okay, please, can you define that term to us? What do you mean by this term? So your definition you offer the people will help them analyze how you used it, why you used it. If it is sufficient, they will tell you, yes, they agree. But if it is not sufficient, they will tell you they have problem. Given the definition you gave them and then what you have said, they are two different things. They are two different things. So we need always to be smart at them. So definition, when we talk about definition, we say definition is a declarative sentence that convey or present the meaning of a word. It again a declarative sentence. It is a declarative sentence. Declarative sentences, they are meant to be clear and straight to the point. So the main task of logic, as I've told you earlier, is the evaluation of arguments. Okay, evaluation of argument. You need to evaluate argument. But before you can evaluate argument, what do you have to do? You need to observe the meaning of words. You have to observe the meaning of words. The word that has been used, is it vague, or is it ambiguous, or does it evoke anything? Is it equivocating? If it is any of those, then you have to clarify before you move on. So the task of logic, as we know, is about evaluating argument. And you cannot evaluate argument when you have not observed the meanings of the terminologies that have been used as to whether those meanings are vague or ambiguous. And so Govia says that clearing up the problem often involves supplying a definition. And this is why we give a definition to terms, so that we shall avoid vagueness, ambiguity, or equivocation. We do this so that we can avoid them, right? Govia sees the study of meaning and definition as closely related to the main task of logic. That is the main task of logic. So in logic, we are talking about clarity. We are talking about a system of reasoning. And that system of reasoning is about order. There should be orderliness in the conversation. There should be orderliness in the presentation, right? So in connection to cognitive meaning, terms comprise of intentional and then external meaning. So now that we want to talk about definition, we want to talk about meanings, then we have to understand in cognitive meaning what is meant by intentional, what is meant by external meanings. Because once you're talking about meanings, there are other meanings that can come out of the cognitive meaning. So if we talk about intentional meaning, then we are talking about the qualities or attributes that a term connotes. The qualities or attributes that a term connotes. And when we are talking about extensional meaning, then we are talking about the members of the class that the term denotes. The members of the class that the term denotes. So we want to look at the intentional and extensional meaning of a cat, right? So the intentional meaning consists of being fairy. You see, as I have mentioned, I said the intentional meaning consists of what? The qualities or attributes that the term connotes. The qualities or attributes that the term connotes. So if you are looking at the intentional meaning of a cat, then it consists of being fairy, of having four legs, of moving in a certain way, and of emitting certain sounds like meow, emitting certain sounds like meow, etc. So sometimes when you go into the dictionary and you want to find the meaning of a cat, the dictionary will give you the intentional meaning as well as the extensional meaning. That is why we say in cognitive meaning, there can be two other types of meaning. They have to do with the intentional, which consists of the qualities or the attribute that the term connotes. Right. So the intentional meaning consists of what? Cats themselves. Right? And then we can talk about the extensional the extensional meaning consists of the cat, because we are talking about the class that the term connotes. So now the types of cats that are there, you can name all of them. That is the extensional meaning, the class that the term denotes, all the cat class. So even we can classify lions, leopards, all of them belonging to the cat family. Then we are doing extensional meaning. We are doing extensional meaning. The members of the class that particular term denote, we can mention them all. All right. So the intentional meaning is what we refer to as the intention or the connotation. Intention or the connotation, because we are saying the qualities or the attribute the term connotes. So connotation. The extensional meaning is what we talk about as the extension, the class that the term actually denotes, the extension of that particular class that particular term belongs to. So also referred to as denotation. So the use of the terms connotation and denotation in logic also differ extensively when we come to their use in grammar. So if you pick any grammar textbook and you come across connotation and denotation, they mean different things. But when we come to logic, they also mean different things. And we need to understand them in logical manner. I am not teaching grammar, so I'm not referring anything to grammar because this is not an English course. This is a philosophy course. All right. So we want to try to look at connotation and denotation to some extent. So in conveying the meaning of a word, there are two ways that we can do that. We can either convey the meaning of a word by connotation or denotation, right? So as I have explained earlier, when we talk about connotation, then you are referring to the meaning of a word, okay, which gives a description of the features or attributes or properties of a range of objects in the world to which the word may be applied. Let's look at two examples, head and the mobile phone. And let's try to give them meaning by a connotative meanings. Number one, head is the upper part of a human body or an animal's body that contains the brain and the face. So that is a connotative meaning. A connotative meaning. Because we say a connotative meaning implies that when the meaning of a word gives a description, right? So the word head here, when we are defining it, it is giving a description of what word means, what head means. A description is being given about what a head is. So the head being described as what? The upper part of the human body. It is also the feature. Okay? So the head is also the feature of the human body. It is also an attribute. It is also a property of the human body. So that is what we mean by what? Connotation. Let's talk about mobile phone. Mobile phone is an electronic device for receiving and making calls. It's a description. It is also the feature. The feature of mobile phone is that it should be able to what? Receive and make calls. The attribute of a mobile phone is that you can call on it, you can make call on it, you can receive call on it. These are its attributes. The properties of a mobile phone is that it can make calls, it can receive calls. These are the properties. So when we are talking about connotation, this is what we mean. And please take advantage of them. When we talk about denotation, now we want to look at the denotation of what head and the mobile phone also mean. Right, denotation. This refers to the collection of all the things in the world that are correctly picked out by a word's connotation. Okay, correctly. So by the word connotation, all the things that are picked out by the word connotation, what the word connotes. So we look at the collection of all things, all items. So we look at the class that particular term belongs to. But when you define it connotatively, you have the same meaning. That's what we are saying. So it refers to the definition that conveys the meaning of a word by giving examples. So let's look at the example of the mobile phone, the meaning of mobile phone by denotation. For example, the meaning of mobile phone, for example, are Samsung, Nokia Lumia phone, Motorola phone, LG phone, iPhone, which other phone? Mention them. Mention all the phones that you know. So all of those phones. Then let's look at even the meaning of even number. The meaning of even number, for example, are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, etc. But when you are defining even number, denotatively, connotatively, you talk about a number that is divisible by 2, etc., and by the number itself. Okay. So all of that will be connotative. But denotative, then you are listing the class. You are listing the class that term belongs to by its connotative meaning. All right. So this is what it means to define a word by denotation, as we have mentioned. I'll come back to the head very soon. However, the relationship that exists between the connotation and the denotation is that giving the connotation of word, we can identify or determine its denotation. So by the help of the connotation of a word, we can then identify its denotation. Now let's come to the word head. We know by connotation, the word head refers to the upper part of the human body, all right, or animal's body that contains the brain and the face. Now we can move ahead and look at the denotation. That is why we say that giving is the relationship that exists between the connotation and denotation is that giving the connotation of a word, giving the connotation, this connotation by the definition of a word, we can identify or determine its denotation. So by this connotation, we can determine the denotation of head. So what is the denotation? The denotation will be the head of every human being, right? That would be the denotation. Then we are denoting the head of all human beings or the head of all animals on earth. The head of all. But we can further go ahead for the same word head. We can go ahead and look at it again, referring to someone who is in charge of an operation. So for instance, when you go into an industry and somebody is in charge of an operation, we will refer to the person as the head. If you go to a secondary school, you go to a junior high school, the person in charge of the operation of the school is often referred to as the headmaster, the headies. If you come to the university, the person in charge of the operation of the particular department, accounting, HRM, marketing, etc., is the head. But we'll refer to that person as what? The head of department. So the person in charge of all the department under a particular group like business will be referred to as the dean, right? So someone who is in charge of an operation, so who is in charge of the operation of all the business programs, that person is the dean of all the business programs, which we will now refer to as CBS, or referred to as the Faculty of Science and Social Sciences, or all the other faculties, and they all have their heads. Now, the one in charge of the academic process, okay, the one in charge of the operation of the academic process in the entire university is referred to as the pro vice chancellor academics. The pro vice chancellor academics. Then the one in charge of both the academics, who is in charge of all the academics and the non-academics, is now referred to as the vice chancellor, right, within the university. So this is within the university setting. The same thing applies to those of you who are working in organizations. So in this instance, the denotation will be all persons that are in charge of specific operations or particular institutions. That's dependent on the connotation of a word, will we be able to determine the denotation. So if you want to find the denotation of a particular word, then you should be able to find its connotation. All right? If you are able to do that, then you're good to go. That is what the dictionary does. So the definition we get in the dictionary, it does all of that. First of all, the dictionary will give us the connotation of the word first, and then move on to give us the denotation. So sometimes you can see how it goes ahead. The denotation can even go to the use of the word as an idiom, the use of the word as a particular phrase, and then the function of the word in different spheres. All of it are classified as such. So all that we are looking at in language, that is how it plays out. So what is important is, if a word has several connotations, it means that each connotation will have their respective denotations. One of the best dictionaries that probably you have to look out for and use is a student encounter dictionary. Mostly they are pre-installed on certain computers, so you can get them. So the encounter is a dictionary. You can have all of that. It does such a very good, fantastic work, right? And this time around, I think most computers, even the Mac Pro, like the one I have, has its own pre-installed dictionary on it. If it is not pre-installed, you can just go to the Apple Store and download it, whether for your iPhone or for your Apple device. You can do all of that. Okay, so this brings us to the purpose of definition. Why do we have to make definitions? As I have declared to you earlier, from what Govia says, that the studying the meaning of words is linked to logic. So if you want to do evaluative assessment of, or you want to do a credible assessment of an argument, then you need to observe, because you can't say an argument is valid, an argument is invalid. You can't say an argument is weak, an argument is strong, when you have not sufficiently dealt with, evaluated the argument by observing the meaning, right? And then looking out for possible problems that are there to help you know what is being churned out. If you don't do that, you will not be able to sufficiently deal with the problem. So this is the reason why we have to define words. So lack of clarity in meaning can hinder good reasoning and obstruct effective communication. One way to make meaning clearer is to use definitions. Philosophers like Plato use definition to explain or explicate the meaning of certain eternal essence of forms, such as justice, piety, and virtue. So if you want to look at the meaning of justice, piety, and virtue from philosophical perspective, go to Plato. You can go online and just go to Google search and say, how did Plato define justice, piety, and virtue? It will pop out for you, and then you read. Definitions are intended exclusively to explicate the meaning of words. When you say explicate, to make clear the meaning of words, right? So Halley claimed definitions are intended to serve a particular purpose a speaker may intend, right? So the purpose you intend to use the word for, define the word for it. Okay. So another speaker, one who also use the same word, may not also use your definition. Probably that speaker also will want to use that term to mean something else. Then he must also provide definition. That is what Halley is saying, that definitions are intended to serve a particular purpose. What purpose do you want that definition to serve for you? Now you are going to this young lady you're interested in to express your love or whatever to her, your likeness, your fondness, and etc. to her. The word you are using, what is your definition of it? Make her aware that this is, if I use this word, this is what I mean to say. So even if the lady understands that word differently, it is your meaning she must stick to. It is your meaning she must stick to. If it also changes over time, you have to make her aware that this word, now this is how you now use it. You also have to look at it. It's very important. It means that you are being honest. Okay. So there are 5 of these kinds of definitions, right? Now, when we talk about definition broadly has 2 types. It has 2 parts. Definition has 2 types, or is made up of 2 parts. It has the part called definiendum, and then the part called definien. Please, you can pronounce it wherever you are, silently at your side. Don't unmute yourself before doing that. So one part is called definiendum. So you can pronounce it definiendum. And the next part is called definien. So every definition has 2 parts. And the names for the 2 parts are what I have just iterated. Definiendum and definien. What are they? Definiendum is the term or group of words that is to be defined. The word to be defined is the subject of the definition. So I want to define a word like table. Now, the word table is the definiendum. That is the part to be defined. That is the subject of the definition. Whatever I say as the meaning of table is what is referred to as the definien. So the definien is the group of words or concepts used in the definition that is supposed to convey the meaning of the definiendum. For example, bachelor. Bachelor means an unmarried man. The word bachelor is the definiendum. That is the part to be defined. And the group of words assigned to it as the definition, or the part supposed to convey the meaning, which is the unmarried man, is the definien. So we note the difference between the 2. So every definition has 2 parts, the definiendum and then the definien. The definiendum is the term to be defined or the group of words to be defined. The definien is the definition that is supposed to convey the meaning that has been assigned to the definiendum. So basically, these are they. Now let's look at the 5 types of definitions that are available. These include reportive or lexical definition, and the stipulative definition, precising definition, persuasive definition, and theoretical definition. Basically, there are 5. And there is a confusion that is created by some textbooks. In some textbooks, they also use the 2 types of meaning, which we know as the connotation, the 2 types of meaning in a cognitive meaning. Okay, cognitive meaning has intentional meanings and then has the extensional meaning. Some people also use those types of meanings and the way the definitions they must offer or they offer, all right, to confuse with the 5 broad types of definitional purpose. These are definitional purposes, and there are 5 of them. So these, when you are defining a word, you can use any of these definitional purposes to do that, and there are 5 of them. If you use them, it means that you have an intention to utilize those definitions for. The first one is the reportive. The reportive is also referred to as a lexical. They have to deal with what we call a dictionary definition. So anything dictionary, whether from an encyclopedia or from a specialist definition, specialist dictionary like accounting dictionary. We have dictionary for bankers. We have dictionary for accountants, for accounting. We have dictionary for lawyers. These are specialized. If you are a science student, we have special dictionary for science, for physics, for chemistry, for biology. They are all there. You can get all of them. They are all available. So these are specialized dictionaries. They are all reporting. Okay, that's what we call them, reportive. They are all reporting. So these reportive or lexical definition refers to definition of words that are taken from the dictionary. And I've mentioned all the types of dictionaries that we can have. In other words, it reports the existing meaning of a term. All right. Dictionary definitions mostly describe the connotation of words. So we now know what connotation is. The connotation, that is when it is the offering descriptive features, either about the qualities or the attributes of the term. So dictionary definitions mostly describe the connotation of words. It does not mean that you will not have the denotation. I have mentioned that some dictionaries will go ahead to provide the denotative meanings of the words. But the dictionary will not tell you that this connotation, this is denotation. It is you who have to know that. The following examples are taken from the dictionary. For example, number one, prime number. Prime number refers to any integer divisible only by one and itself. Divisible only by one and itself. That is a prime number. So we ask example of a prime number. So if we go ahead and list all the group of prime numbers or examples of prime numbers, then we have moved away from connotation to denotation. For example, prime numbers 3, 7, 11. So 9. Somebody will ask, why is 9 not a prime number? Then you have to find out that. Can 9 be divided by other numbers? Or 9 can be divided by 1 and itself alone. If it is by 1 and itself alone, there is a prime number. So by the definition, then you know what to do. Number 2, the word student. Student is a learner enrolled in an educational institution. Okay, that is the connotation. That is what dictionary may offer you. But if it goes ahead and mention all the types or group or class of students, then we have moved on to denotation. Okay. The musician. Musician is someone who conducts or composes music as a profession. Who conduct or composes music as a profession. That is a connotation. Dictionary cannot be regarded as an authoritative guide to reportive definition. And I'm going to offer you a few reasons. Sometimes, some of us think that all there are to definition is the dictionary. Dictionary is everything. It's everything. We need to get it. But if you do that, you will have a problem. Because dictionary cannot be seen as a sacrosanct server of all needs. If you do that, you have a problem. Because you may have terms that dictionary may even not have an entry to define because those terms are specialized. Most accounting terms, they are specialized terms. You can't find them in the dictionary. And when you go to the dictionary, they just tell you, see this word. And when you go and see that word, you check to the relationship is very narrow and you don't have anything from that. Which means that to understand that term better, you have to pick an accounting dictionary. Sometimes the word is a legal term. For instance, as you go on, you'll be learning certain courses like contract law, business law, company law, and some kind of law. And they realize that when you take dictionary, you can get those meanings. That is what we are saying. So we are saying that the dictionary cannot be regarded as an authoritative guide to reportive definition. The reasons include: 1, many words in a language are difficult, if not impossible, to define. Many words are difficult to define. So the dictionaries will not offer you, cannot offer you. Number 2, the main aim of a dictionary meaning is often to give enough indication of the main usage of a word so that a speaker can use the word adequately in everyday language. So oftentimes, that is what the dictionary, the purpose it is served for, right? To give you enough indication of the main usage, how the word is mainly used. So once it gives you that, it helps you to be able to also use the word adequately. in your day-to-day life. The limitation of space, sometimes, you see, the dictionary doesn't have space, okay, to offer you a detailed definition, right? So the dictionary will not be able to capture adequately the exact meanings of the word. For example, if you have a pocket Oxford dictionary, open it and then find how it defines the word religion. It defines the word religion as belief in a superhuman or controlling power, right? But if somebody doesn't believe that superhumans exist, that also control other planets, then they will tell you that they are not religious. That is what we have. You see, the reason why people say, I'm religious, I'm not religious, they are all because of the definitions that have been offered by the dictionary. Okay, so somebody will say, I'm religious. Somebody will say, I'm not religious. And everybody is carrying their own meaning in their head. Because if you go to the dictionary, the meaning it offers you is insufficient. Another example why the dictionary is not cannot be regarded as an authoritative path for all perfect definitions. Some terms are technical words and are constantly used in specialized ways. For example, microwave, hyperinflation, and a priori. When you go to if you take microwave, it's scientific. So you can, when you go to your dictionary, if you have any dictionary available, open it and check the word microwave. You may not even get the word microwave in the dictionary. And even if you have it, the definition it will give you is a secular definition, or there's no definition even existing. Hyperinflation, they'll be talking about economics. So if you don't know this as a specialized term, and you need an economics textbook to understand it, you have problem. A priori, the same thing. It's a philosophical term. So if you don't have philosophical dictionary, you can understand it. So some terms are technical, they are specialized, and you need specialized entry dictionaries to understand them. So their entries in a general language dictionary might not be accurate enough. So in such cases, you have to consult a very special dictionary for the particular discipline in question. You see, I've mentioned the several disciplines. For instance, microwave, you need some physics dictionary to understand what is called microwave. If you don't have a specialized dictionary, you can understand it. A lexical definition may also list the various meanings that a word can have, okay? So the various meaning, connotative meanings a word can have. The dictionary will list all of them, and then will tell you when it is used as a verb, when it is used as a noun, when it is used as an adjective, when it is used as an adverb, when it is used as so and so and so and so. So a person who consults such a definition is better prepared to avoid ambiguous construction of his or her own to detect those of others. So what it means, a reportive meaning is a description of how a word is actually used. It is tested by reference to the facts of usage. Okay, so that is one of the things, benefits of using the dictionary. How the word is used, it will help you to use it effectively. How the word cannot, you can use it and it will be correct. That is what it does for you, and it's fantastic. Then we come to the stipulative definition. With a stipulative definition, when the meaning of a word is agreed on for the purpose of debate or a discussion or a project, then we say a stipulative definition has been established. So let's say, for instance, in the context of debate, we want to use a particular term, a particular word, right? That word, we can agree on a definition for the purpose of that debate. And so, okay, this word for this debate means this. When you do that, the word has been stipulated. All right. In other words, stipulative definition is used to assign a new meaning to a new term, to a term. Okay, a new meaning to a term, whether or not the term has already got a meaning. Sometimes the term has already got a meaning, but you want to give it a new meaning because of the purpose for which you want to use it for. Okay, sometimes new words are also coming. Look at the word like chair. Chair. Today we have stipulative meaning for chair, and virtually is becoming accepted. And people all over the world are beginning to know the meaning of chair. And now they have even developed other part of speech, out of trialistic, all sorts of things have come out of the word chair. Go online, you'll find it. If you want to ascertain what I'm saying as true, go, you'll find it. Let's look at the dance azonto. Azonto is also a new word, came in as a result of what? Dance. And now Azonto has been consumed as a popular term all over the world. Okay. The stipulative definition that has been given it is existing, and people are beginning to know it as such. So if the stipulative definition is accepted, then the term is used in the new way that is prescribed. Thus, a stipulative definition is based on deliberation and agreement or through consensus. So based on deliberation and agreement or consensus, we can bring about a stipulative meaning. Let's look at a few examples showing that. So let's say, for instance, are we supposed to give a new meaning to the word MBA? We know MBA popularly stands for Masters of Business Administration. But now we define MBA as, or to mean married but available. For those who are married but they are still available to go on with other men or to go on with other women. Then what we are doing is what? Stipulative. So if this definition is accepted, then we can go about describing other people as MBAs. So now you can meet somebody and say, oh, are you an MBA? Oh, I am an MBA. It means I'm married, but I'm still available. Okay, so somebody can even describe himself as an MBA. That is, if that particular definition is accepted, then it will be used in the new specialized way. Right. Suppose we say that to love someone is to be willing to die for that person. Right. Then what you are going to do is that anytime you say I love you, or somebody says I love you, then it means that the person is willing to die for you. Then it becomes stipulative definition. Take human to mean any member of the species Homo sapiens. For the purpose of argumentation, we will define I think we have. I think this. Okay, so we can bring it in. So for the purpose of argumentation, we will define a student to be a person under 18. All right, enrolled in a local school. Then it becomes a stipulation. But you see, for the purpose of what? Argumentation. Maybe there's an argumentation context, and we want to use the word student for the particular thing we are arguing for. So the stage can be set for all of you to say, okay, when we are talking about student, we are talking about somebody under the age of 18 enrolled in a local school. A local school. So it means even somebody enrolled in an exotic school somewhere cannot be referred in that category. That is what the definition then will be offered for. Right. So this is what we talk about stipulative definition. The purpose of stipulative definition is usually to replace a more complex expression with a simpler one. Stipulative definitions are neither true nor false. So if you come across the stipulative definition, you cannot say they are true or false because they are being prescribed for the first time. All right. I think I am almost running up with just the definitions so that I can close you to go in for your next section, right? So, but kindly give me, maybe if my time is up, you may give me a little, about 4 more minutes, then I end. All right. So we'll also talk about a precise and definition. Precise and definition might be regarded as a combination of reportive and stipulative definition. The aim of precise and definition is to make the meaning of a term more precise for some purpose, mostly for legislative purposes, okay, or for legal purposes, or sometimes for policy purposes. Let's say government want to have certain policies in place in Ghana, they can use precise and definition. That is why even Parliament will make the laws for us, and the court will have to interpret what the law means. And what the court says, that is the definition that will stay. You know, recently with the saga relating, revolving, or involving the e-levy sort of nonsense that have been debated and fought over in Parliament for a very long time, had to do with some definitional issues, including voting purposes. Who has the right to vote in Parliament or not? Does the second deputy in Parliament have the right to vote on a cause for the government or what? So all of these were debated on extensively. They ended up in court, and then the Supreme Court ruled those things out and say, look, the deputy, the second deputy uh, in parliament has the right to vote. Okay, so then it helped the majority to then pass the e-levy law. So that was how come the e-levy has come to stay. Had it not been for those definitions not being clarified, the e-levy couldn't have passed. So understand that we precise the definition of them for the purpose, for some particular purposes. We do that to reduce the vagueness of a word, because you look at the articles and they themselves were contesting, yes, there are some kind of vagueness. When you take this word and you take this particular clause, you take this article and this clause, they mean two different things. So how do we interpret them? Then the court came in, the Supreme Court came in and said, right, okay, when we talk about this, we will refer it specifically to this, but this is for this. Therefore, on the basis of this, we rule that, and then it goes for policies. For example, another example, a bus company might want to give discount to old people, but simply declaring that old people can get discount will lead to many disputes, since it is not clear how old should one be in order to be an old person. So they can go ahead and provide a definition by precising it. So one might define old person to mean any person of age 65 and above. The moment they do this, they are precise the definition. If you take the dictionary to look for the word old or old person, it will never tell you any person belonging to a particular age. If you like, you can try and see, and then give us your result or your opinion or your assessment or validations or etc. You can give us that. Then it will also inform us that the dictionary has something like that. So you take the word old person or old in the dictionary, it will never tell you any person of age 65 or above. So if you take the dictionary meaning as sacrosanct, it is vague. If you apply it, there'll be problem. And for policy reasons, we will have more problem. But if the policy makers or the bus company decide, okay, we are going to define old as any person of age 65 and above. So if you are 65 years and above, you are an old person, then we are going to be giving this discount out for you anytime you use our product, our buses and etc. We are going to give you this discount. Then they are precise the definition. This is one of many possible definitions of old that can be used for policy purposes. Again, we want to find out if animals such as birds or apes possess language. This calls for being more precise about what is meant by language. Because if you enter the word language in a dictionary, it's vague. You will have problem. So if by language we refer to any system of communication, then obviously birds and other animals do make use of languages. Any system of communication, any system. Then any system includes birds and animals also, because they also have systems of what making communication. Then we can say that they have language. But if we go ahead, right, to define language as one, as requiring a combinatorial syntax and semantics, allowing a user of the language to communicate information about non-existent objects or situations remote in time and space from the location of discourse. Using language in this way shows the communication system of some animals might not qualify as a language. So probably some animals will, but not all. This example illustrates the use of precising definitions to resolve dispute. Mostly is to resolve what? Dispute. I wouldn't want to venture more into dispute, but you can read from your textbook and then you will find more about disputes, and then you read about it, the types of disputes that are there. So the purpose is to resolve disputes that involve some key concept whose meaning might not be clear enough. That is why we use what? The precising. So as I have said, you saw the dispute in parliament about who, whether or not the deputy, the second deputy speaker in parliament can vote on government issues, and the minority. So it's no, You cannot vote. You don't have the right to vote. So it led to dispute until it was clarified and precised for them. So from henceforth, the definition of who qualified to vote in parliament has been set forth clear, and the laws are there to back us. Then we can use those authorities to say who qualified to vote in parliament. So even if you're a lay person, you know by that definition, this so and so person qualifies. Then we come to persuasive definition. So please, as I've requested, our time is up, but give me a few more minutes to wrap up with the definition, and then we step up with the last one. So persuasive definition. A persuasive definition is any definition that attaches an emotion, either positive or derogatory meaning, to a term where it has none. For example, someone against abortion might offer the definition of abortion as the murder of an innocent person during pregnancy. That's persuasive definition. Persuasive are more of emotional. They have to be emotional. They are emotive. They are positive. They are derogatory. So once they use them, then you see that pro-abortionists will say, hey, we are going. You are killing people. So if anybody cause abortion, you have actually killed a human being. Right? The definition carries a negative connotation, as the term murder suggests that abortion is wrongfully killing, and it also killing what? The fetus in the belly, right? And it's also assumed that the aborted fetus is already a person. That is why you have aborted him or her. So if the fetus is about 3 weeks old, 1 month old, 3 months old, the pro-life people presume that the fetus is already a human being. So if you take any drug and then expunge the fetus out of your belly, you have killed a human being. You have murdered, and you should be arraigned before court. So there are countries in this planet Earth who are pro-life. If you cause abortion, you will go to prison. Please note that those of us who may favor abortion, you'll find yourself in those countries who are pro-life activists. If you cause abortion, please know that you will go to prison. You will serve your terms in prison. There are some countries where abortion is allowed. In Ghana, abortion is not allowed, but it is allowed on certain medical conditions. And I think throughout Ghana, there is only one licensed abortion clinic. All of Ghana, only one licensed abortion clinic, to mean that if somebody will have to do abortion, it is only that particular clinic the person can go and cause. So there are all kinds of things revolving around these issues. So persuasive definitions, they are mostly based on emotion. Such a definition is surely not appropriate in a fair debate on the moral legitimacy of abortion, even though it might be useful as a rhetorical tool. There's a current debate in America about the statute of abortion, and the Supreme Court has taken upon itself, has tasked itself to review a particular law on abortion that has actually given people the right to abortion for a very long time. Now, Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, is now considering reversing the ruling in that particular case. It's a current case. It's a contemporary case. So those of you who follow international issues, you can go online. Maybe I will share the link with you. At the moment I'm done, I will share the link with you. Those of you who are savvy, who want to go further into reading and analyzing most of these practical issues, can go there. So lastly, I will discuss this and we will finish the rest, the few other issues under the topic, and then that will be it. So that is the theoretical definition. Theoretical definition refers to meanings of words that come from theories that have gained acceptance in specific fields of scientific knowledge. For example, water is H2O. To understand this definition, you must have been taught chemistry or be a chemist to understand that water is what? H2O. Even number is any number that is divisible by 2 without remainder. Even number is any number that is divisible by what? 2 without remainder. To understand this definition, you must have been taught mathematics or be a mathematician. So you can understand these because you have been taught mathematics. That's why it's a theoretical definition. Theoretical definitions are neither true nor false. The reason is that theoretical definitions function as proposals to see or interpret some phenomenon in a certain way, right? So that is about the theoretical definition. All right. So I will end on this note, and I'm just left with two items to discuss, but I think time is not at our side. So I'll leave those two items out and complete it in a follow-up lecture, and that will constitute the rest of what we have learned under the subject matter, logic and language usage. Thank you very much, class. I'm so grateful for your participation. So far, I've not had any question from any of you on any of the platforms. And so if you later have any question, I'll be glad to have your questions answered. So do your best to ask your questions or send your questions to the various platforms that you are on so that I can assist you to understand further. Thank you very much.